The engine purred softly, like the dying heartbeat of some mechanical beast. A red warning light blinked on the dashboard, but Jake didn't notice. He sat in the cab of his Freightliner, hands pressed to the steering wheel, as if that could somehow protect him. Outside, there was nothing but darkness, a desolate road with no streetlights, no distant headlights, no hope, no motels, no traffic, no salvation, only him and it. The creature stood just outside the window, massive, its skin charred and scaled like burned tree bark, and its eyes didn't reflect light. They swallowed it. It didn't growl. It didn't knock. It simply watched, as if deciding the most efficient way to drag him into the night, through the door, through the glass, or straight through the fear. He knew this was the end, and in that moment, when terror had clenched his chest like a vice, a deeper dread washed over him. "Murphy, my cat, who's going to feed you tomorrow?" The thought came sharp and clear. His old orange tabby, lazy and grumpy, the one he found years ago on the side of the road, waited for him every time he came back from a haul. Murphy didn't know what never coming back meant. "Ellie, my little girl." A new pain bloomed inside him, worse than the fear. Sweet little Ellie, all wide eyes and soft steps, already motherless. She'd survived that heartbreak, clung to him like a lifeline. He had promised to be everything for her, and now he was about to break that promise. "God damn it," he whispered through clenched teeth as a tear slid down his cheek. And all because of that turn, that one damn shortcut he decided to take. And because of that man at the gas station. The face flashed in his mind. Dry, stretched thin by time. Black sunglasses. At night. A voice like it came from underwater. "Turn right and you'll shave off an hour. Just don't talk to yourself while driving. Or you might not make it there." Jake had even thanked him. He shouldn't have. He shouldn't have asked. The thing outside moved. The cab creaked. He closed his eyes, and he saw Ellie waving goodbye at the school bus, and Murphy leaping onto the windowsill, and the old photo album where a younger version of himself held his wife in front of his first truck. Then a crack, screeching metal, and silence. Heat hung over the garage like a heavy blanket, thick with the scent of dust, diesel, and old regrets. Jake lay beneath the belly of his trusty Freightliner, a wrench in hand. The metal groaned and gave way with a loud snap. Stuck suspension, finally loose. He exhaled, wiped sweat from his brow, and rolled out from under the truck. Next to him, on a folding chair, dozed Murphy, his orange tabby, paws tucked in, ears twitching, half asleep, half watching. He was always nearby when Jake worked on the truck. Murphy didn't like people much, but he adored Jake. "You're the only one who hasn't left me, old boy," Jake muttered, sitting down beside him, rubbing his aching knee. He glanced at his battered toolbox, the worn wrenches, the rusty jack, the stack of unpaid bills shoved in the corner. All reminders that life had long since veered off the fast lane and into the shoulder. Money was running out. The past few months had been brutal. Living from hall to hall, rising fuel costs, busted AC, late tuition payments for Ellie, and Ellie herself. That hurt more than anything. She was in 4th grade, used to giggle at his beard and hide under the table when he banged the hammer. Now, cold, distant, not a daughter, a ghost. "You know why Mom left, Dad," she had said just the day before, eyes fixed on the floor. "You were always gone. She just got tired of it." He wanted to fight back, to say it wasn't that her mom had found someone younger, flashier, wealthier. But what was the point? Ellie wouldn't forgive. He sighed, glancing at his old phone. The dispatcher still hadn't called back. He was supposed to hit the road tomorrow. No manifest yet. No details. Just a vague direction through Nevada's unlit highways. Deep desert. One haul, Jake. 1 day out. 1 day back. Cash on arrival. No questions. He knew damn well safe jobs don't come with that kind of pitch, but he had no choice. He looked at Murphy. "One last run, buddy. I swear, I'll come back and we'll watch those dumb cowboy reruns together, just like old times." Murphy purred as if he understood. Jake stood up, gave the side of the truck a firm pat. The old engine grumbled back to life. The road was waiting, but Jake wasn't ready. The morning was unbelievably clear. The asphalt shimmered with dew, and the sky above Colorado was the kind of blue that looked poured from a bucket of crushed blueberries. Jake had hit the road early. Engine humming steady, cargo strapped tight, thermos full of coffee. The day promised to be long, but something about the crisp air filled his lungs with hope. He cruised through winding mountain valleys where autumn had already begun to touch the treetops with gold. Silver streams traced the hills below, and eagles circled overhead. Jake cracked the window. The wind smelled of pine and sunlight. Murphy was home, Ellie at school. The cab was quiet for once, but it wasn't a lonely kind of quiet. It was peaceful, healing. He even played an old playlist, slow country ballads from a better time. Jake sang along, catching glimpses of mountain reflections in the side mirror, feeling more alive than he had in weeks. Around noon he pulled into a roadside diner, the Bluebird Diner, a whitewashed building with a glowing neon bird perched above the entrance. The place was almost empty. A pair of truckers, an old man at the counter, and her. She sat by the window, a book in one hand and a steaming cup of coffee in the other. Honey-colored hair, elegant fingers, amber earrings catching the sunlight. He noticed her instantly, and to his surprise, she noticed him too. "Your tire looks a little low," she said, as he walked by. "And you're observant," Jake replied with a grin. That's how the conversation began. Easy, warm, like they'd met in another life. She was a literature teacher, heading home after visiting her sick mother. Her name was Lauren. Her voice was soft, her laugh genuine. They talked for maybe 20 minutes, but it was enough for Jake to realize he couldn't remember the last time he'd really smiled. As he got up to leave, he worked up the courage. "Mind if I get your number? For coffee, or something more?" Lauren gave a half-sad smile, then scribbled a number on a napkin. "Just don't lose it, Jake from Colorado." "I won't," he promised. They parted ways. She turned south. He headed west. He caught glimpses of her car in the mirror a few times before it disappeared down a different road. He kept the napkin in his shirt pocket like a charm, and music played again in the cab. His good mood stayed with him the rest of the day. He didn't know yet. It was the calm before the storm. But on that day, he laughed. Jake was cruising along Route 17 when the engine began to shudder. Just a tremble at first, then a violent jolt that shook the entire cab. Warning lights blinked red on the dash. He cursed under his breath and eased the rig to the side of the road. Steam hissed from under the hood. The engine sputtered, then died. No cell signal, no towns for miles, just long, lonely highway and darkness creeping in like smoke. He got out, popped the hood, and tried what he could. A loose hose, maybe a cracked belt. Nothing obvious, but something was wrong. And Jake knew trucks well enough to know when they were done moving for the night. He climbed back into the cab and checked the GPS. A small roadside motel was 10 miles west, the only thing for hours in either direction. By the time he rolled into the cracked parking lot of the Pine Rest Inn, the truck was coughing like an old man on his last breath. Jake barely made it to a stop without stalling completely. The motel looked like it hadn't seen a renovation since the 1970s. Faded sign, one flickering light, and no cars in the lot. Not even a cat. The place was dead quiet. Inside the lobby, a single ceiling fan spun slow and lazy. Behind the counter stood the only sign of life, a gaunt man in his 60s, skin pale, hair slicked back, with eyes too sharp for someone that tired-looking. He wore a name tag that simply read Wayne. He didn't smile. Jake cleared his throat. Evening. Truck's dead. Just need a room for the night. Wayne stared at him for a long moment before nodding, like each guest was a personal insult. You'll be the only one tonight, he said flatly. Room 3, around the corner. He slid over a rusted key, not a card, a metal key, like it was 1983. Jake gave a half-hearted smile, but Wayne didn't respond. Place got a vending machine? Jake asked. Broke, Wayne said. Jake looked around. No music, no sound but the fan. Even the air felt stale, like it hadn't moved in days. As he walked toward his room, he felt Wayne's eyes follow him the entire way. There was no warmth in them, no curiosity, just the cold judgment of a man who'd seen too much and trusted no one. Room 3 smelled of mildew and old pine cleaner. The bed creaked when he sat. Wallpaper peeled at the edges, but it was better than sleeping in the cab. Barely. Jake lay back, stared at the ceiling. The good mood from earlier was gone. Now there was only the hum of the broken light outside, and the feeling that maybe he should have just stayed on the main road. The motel room had offered little sleep. Creaky bed, humming pipes, and a constant feeling that something just beyond the paper-thin walls was watching. Still, he had a job to finish, no matter how strange the night had been. The cargo in his trailer wasn't going to deliver itself. Back outside, the morning air was cold and dry. The truck sat hunched and silent in the lot, like a wounded animal. Jake got to work under the hood, tools clinking in the stillness. It wasn't a catastrophic failure, just a seized belt and a clogged hose. Fixable for a man with patience and enough grease under his fingernails. While he worked, Wayne appeared. He didn't make a sound. One moment, Jake was under the hood. The next, Wayne was standing behind him, arms crossed, eyes fixed. Jake jumped a little. Jesus, you move quiet. Wayne didn't respond right away. He looked down at the open engine, then up the empty road that disappeared into the distant hills. You won't make it to the service station that way, he said, his voice dry as sandpaper. Jake frowned. You mean the one by Interstate 70? Wayne nodded slowly. Too far. You'll run dry before you hit it. Jake wiped his hands on a rag. "And what do you suggest?" "There's an old maintenance route. Used to be a back road for forestry trucks. Cuts through the ridgeline. Gets you there in half the distance." He paused. "Locals don't take it much anymore. Hard to navigate. Quiet." Jake hesitated. He didn't like the sound of it, but he glanced at his watch. The delivery had to be on time. No delays. And this wasn't some warehouse-to-warehouse shipment. The instructions were specific. No questions. No stops. No excuses. The cargo was sealed. Unmarked. "Heavy. I'll take it," Jake said, though something deep inside told him not to. Wayne nodded once, then pulled a crumpled napkin from his pocket, drew a rough map with a pen. "Turn off the main road after mile marker 141. Don't miss it." No signs. Jake took the napkin. No GPS coordinates. No name for the road. Just an arrow and a line. As he pulled out of the lot an hour later, he saw Wayne still standing by the lobby window, staring after him. The first stretch of the back road was smooth, scenic even. Pines lined the ridge. Golden leaves fluttered across the cracked pavement. But the deeper Jake drove, the narrower the road became. No cell signal. No cars. No signs. Only his own reflection bouncing back from the side mirrors. And then the engine stuttered. Jake's stomach turned. He glanced at the fuel gauge. Empty. Impossible. He'd filled it 2 towns ago. He killed the engine, stepped out, and checked the tank. The fuel hose was clamped, a thick metal pinch, as if someone had deliberately blocked it. Someone who knew trucks. Someone who'd wanted him to run out of gas here, in the middle of nowhere. Jake stared at the trees. No wind, no birds, only silence. He was off route, out of gas, alone, and just now beginning to realize he wasn't lost by accident. The sun dipped fast behind the hills. What had been a quiet, golden afternoon quickly decayed into an unsettling dusk. Shadows grew long, crawling across the narrow road like fingers reaching for the truck. The trees, once peaceful, now stood like silent sentinels, watching, waiting. Jake sat in the cab, arms wrapped around himself, the temperature plummeting with the dark. He tried to radio out. Static. The GPS was dead. Phone useless. And then the sounds began. At first, it was just a rustle. Then a distant snapping of branches, unsteady footsteps, but nothing natural. Too heavy, too slow, measured. Jake froze, hand on the door lock. His eyes flicked to the mirrors. Nothing but darkness and the faint glint of moonlight. Another sound. Closer this time. A low, guttural breathing. Almost deliberate. He locked the doors, killed the interior lights, sat in the dark, only the dash lights glowing faint red. His breath fogged the windshield. This isn't an animal, he thought. Animals don't wait this long. He grabbed the old wool blanket from behind the seat and wrapped himself in it, more for comfort than warmth. His hands shook, not just from the cold, but from the slow, creeping terror that had slithered into his bones. The wind had stopped. Total silence. And then the window. Something moved past it. A shape. A shadow. A form. Jake's breath caught in his throat. He dared not move, but his eyes locked on the side mirror. Something was standing just outside. It wasn't human. Not entirely. Gray skin stretched tight over a tall, humanoid frame, covered in scales, slick and glistening in the moonlight. Its arms were too long, hands ended in claws, and its ears, long, sharp, pointed, twitched as it slowly leaned toward the window. Jake stayed frozen. Blanket pulled tight around him like a child hiding from nightmares. But this wasn't a dream. He could see the fog forming on the glass from the thing's breath. A cold mist spread across the window, and with it came the scent of rot and ice. Jake's heart pounded so hard he could hear it. Then the creature pressed closer, and he saw its face. Not quite human, not quite beast. Mouth unmoving, eyes black and ancient, as if staring through him and into some part of his soul even he had forgotten. Jake let out a stifled whimper, his body rigid, his mind screaming to move, to run. But he was trapped. The truck wouldn't save him. The locks wouldn't matter. And in that moment, wrapped in a blanket, in a dead rig on a forgotten road, Jake realized this was no accident. This was a hunt, and he was the prey. It was just after dawn when Ranger Tom Alvarez reached the truck. He had received a static-filled distress ping hours ago. Then nothing. No coordinates. No follow-up. But he knew this road, knew its reputation. And when dispatch gave him the general location, a chill ran down his spine. The forest here was thick, suffocating. Trees leaned in close, like they were whispering to each other. And there, just off the old maintenance road, was the rig. It sat silent like a carcass, its side torn open, massive claw marks gouged deep into the metal. The driver's side door? Ripped clean off and hurled 10 feet away into the brush. The windshield was cracked, the dashboard dented from the inside, as if something had thrashed violently. No sign of the driver. Alvarez stepped out cautiously, one hand on his radio, the other on the handle of his sidearm. He moved closer, boots crunching the frost-covered leaves. That's when he saw them. Tracks. Inhuman. Large. Deep. Clawed. Footprints that didn't belong to any animal he knew. They circled the truck, then led into the forest. He followed them only a few yards before he stopped. There, caught on a low branch, was a scrap of flannel, torn, dark with blood. And then, in the distance, a howl. It wasn't a wolf, wasn't a bear. It was something else, something old, something that made every part of his body go still. The hairs on the back of his neck stood up. His instinct screamed, "Leave, now." He didn't need more proof. He turned and walked fast, not quite running, back to his truck, slid into the seat, locked the doors. As he started the engine, another roar echoed through the trees, closer this time. He drove fast, didn't look back. That stretch of road? It's been unofficially closed ever since. Locals say it's cursed. Truckers avoid it. And no one drives there after dark, because everyone knows, even if they don't say it out loud. Jake wasn't the first, and he won't be the last.